Right, we want to cross over to our panelists who are already in studio with us to just also weigh in on what they think about the Michuki rules right now. Yes, they've begun in earnest, but will that taper off with time, or will still have the same vigor being maintained and sustained by the authorities? Allow me to introduce this morning to you our panelists who are with us. We have with us Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is the governor of Kisumu. Welcome back, sir. It's good to have you after a long time. Also, we do have Kimbi Gitura, who is a former senator of Murang'a and also the former deputy speaker of the Senate. We do have with us Okongo Omogeni, the senator of Nyamira, and we do have as well Senator Samuel Pogisu, who is the senator of West Pokot. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Right, let's just begin with what is happening with Michuki rules so far. I think people are saying, why are we saying that they're being reinforced? Because at what point did we lose out on Michuki rules as well? Let's just begin with you, Samuel Pogisu.
Thank you, Debarl. I think we all know that when Michuki started these things as minister, he had managed to get us into some kind of order. And although the matatu owners and all the business people at matatu had protested even that time, yes. You remember people walking to work. It's coming back. It's like to haunt us. The same thing we should have then pursued that at that time. And order would have been restored. Trying to restore order now is going to be, of course, tougher than then, because we've allowed these things to go a bit too far. The people in the matatu industry now have hiked fares. They're trying to hold us, wananchi, of course, at ransom. So very soon, you know, we just have to be prepared. I hope that the people, Inspector General Police, Matiang'i, and even the Transport Minister, I hope they are ready with the human resource and the financial resource to manage the crisis ahead, because it's going to be a crisis.
It's going to be a crisis. Already we're experiencing the crisis. We can see some of the commuters there really protesting as well. But let's hear from Governor Anyang' Nyong'o. Good morning.
Morning, Inea. Thank you very much. I think we must be a rule-based society in all areas. It's not just in the transport sector, but in all areas. One of the problems is that we broke down to develop a society where rules don't matter. Or you can bypass rules and still get away with it.
Yes.
I think that is not how modern society runs. That's why we have constitutions. That's why we have separation of powers in government, so that we have a branch that makes the laws, one that executes it, and one that adjudicates when things go wrong. So now the government has done what it should have done, as Senator Pogisu says, of making sure that these Michuki rules, which were developed and accepted, are used all the time in the transport sector. But the other thing we must realize is that there are vested interests in the transportation sector in various ways, which benefit from not following rules and regulations. For example, the matatu sector largely thrives on chaos, and I think this is no good. If you go into a city or a town and you want to park your matatu anywhere and anyhow, it inconveniences other travelers, not just those in motor vehicles, but also even people who walk and people who cycle. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that it is important that Matiang'i makes sure that we have a rule-based society, particularly in the transportation sector. Otherwise, as population grows, we shall have to create certain facilities which are not really necessary, which cost us money which are not necessary, just because people are not obeying rules. Yeah.
Right. Let's hear from Okongo Omogeni. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl. Yeah, I think on this one we all support Matiang'i. I think the matatu industry is fairly chaotic in this country, and I think Debarl, if you want to pick best practices from other international jurisdictions, matatus are not run the way we do it in Kenya. And I think ever since we collapsed the Kenya bus service,
yes,
there has never been order in this city in terms of how our matatus operate. So really, we must support the government on this. But my only problem is that this kind of knee-jerk reactions, you implement the rules 2 months, 1 month, and then down the line, we operate like we are not a country which should have a rule of law.
Yes.
I mean, if rules are there, they should be there for posterity.
Yeah.
It should not be dependent on which minister is occupying certain position at what time. It should be there for posterity. But also, you know, there is also a bigger problem in this matatu industry. That's where corruption thrives. And why these guys are able to stay on the road is because every day, I can assure you, Debarl, there is money exchanging hands between the matatus and the police officers on the road who are supposed to enforce those rules. And unless Matiang'i cracks the whip on that issue of corruption, we'll never see an end to this, because it will be done for 2 weeks, then it will be back to business as usual. Money will continue exchanging hands between the police officers who are supposed to enforce the rules and the matatu crew, and we'll go back to the old order. The old order. And then, number two, I am happy that governor is here. I need to see, you know, something more from our county governments. You know, because you see battles between county government like Nairobi, between Sonko and Matatus. One day you will see a policy where a directive will be given that Matatus should not encroach to certain areas of the CBD, then a strike, then you see them back again. But if we can make this a long-term initiative, you know, engage the people in the matatu industry, agree on the routes they should operate, agree on which matatus should access the CBD, and then we have order. That way you have a society that is functional. You know, in some countries out there, people don't think of any other mode of transport other than matatus. It's orderly. We are operating like we are still in the era of illiteracy, where matatu touts must shout and tell you this is the matatu that go to it. That should not happen. Because people should actually walk to a bus stop. You should know matatus going to Kiambu. They should be on a queue. Yes. As soon as the first one is full, the next one should come in. Why this noise pollution everywhere in our city? We really create a situation which is fairly embarrassing to us as a country. So I hope this can be something that can be an initiative by both the national government, county government, and the police. But for order, we did it, Debarl.
And if it hadn't taken the spate of accidents that we had recently, and of course losing a lot of lives as well, we don't think this particular Michuki rules will have been, you know, brought back to bear as it is today and this morning. Kemi Gitura, Alozi.
Oh, thank you, Debarl. I was watching a very interesting documentary on one of the television stations last night.
Yes.
On this matatu, you know, issue. And I understand that so far we have lost about 2,500 lives in road accidents, or not all of them through matatus, but most of them matatus and buses. And that number is unacceptable in any society. But I think the bigger problem is cultural. 2003, when John Michuki, the then Minister for Transport, brought in these rules, the so-called Michuki rules, we were there, we were in Parliament. Professor Nyang and myself and Pogisho were in Parliament that time. And I remember that there was a lot of resistance to the Michuki rules. Safety belts, you know, 14-seaters, and speed governors. There was lots of resistance. But the same people, the same Kinyanjui here, the same, the other gentleman is called Kimutai, Simon Kimutai. They were the same characters. And I remember in 2003, I was in a funeral in Muranga with John Michuki and on a Friday. And he told them, listen guys, you say you're not going to obey the rules from Monday.
Yes.
What is going to happen to you is that you're going to have to ground your matatus, because if you don't obey the rules, you'll not be allowed on the roads. And I remember Kimutai replying to Michuki on the Saturday and saying, listen, we are not going to be there on Monday. These are our matatus. We are not going to do what you're asking us to do because it's unreasonable. On Monday, the president issued a statement and said, you must obey the law. And Kimutai turned around on Tuesday and said, okay, we are going to have these things done. And they were done. And there was a lot of orderliness on the roads. I say it's cultural because 2003 is 15 years ago. A matatu tout today, who is 20 years old, was only 5 years old. A driver who is 30 years old today was only 15 years old. So they may very well not know about Michuki rules, because they died as soon as John Michuki was moved from Ministry of Transport to Ministry of Environment. And this is important. What we are seeing now and I pray to God, I hope it is not knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
Not because one bus killed 46 people.
Yes.
That's not the reason that we are now having a change of, going back to these things, because had this thing continued,
yes,
had it continued when John Michuki promulgated these rules, then we'll be seeing a lot of difference. There will be a cultural change, and people would be obeying the rules, and the people who are 5 years old would come to believe that speed governors and safety belts were always part and parcel of matatus in this country. But if you keep changing these rules, then people will believe that this was for nothing. Let me remind you that in 2003, because we were still around 15 years ago, people walked long distances to places of work. And they said, we are going to stand with the government. We are not going to board any matatu until they obey the law. And people walked for more than a month. Matatus came down, they obeyed, and people went back to the route. Now, the reason people may not walk today is because they are not sure whether or not there will be a follow-through
or not.
Or not.
Yes. Because
people are tired, of situations where today we start off well. I don't know whether you remember Debarl. I don't know where you were in 2003 again, when after President Kibaki came into office, people were arresting police officers, found bribing. There was a very big breath of fresh air. And I remember an incident very clearly near Blue Post in Thika, where a policeman was arrested by the people because he was taking a 50 shillings bribe. And that was what people would have wanted to see going forward. But when it became business as usual, people lose faith, and people think it's just talk, nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
I would advise, if I was in Matiang'i's position myself, or C.S. Macharia's position, or the IG's position, I would not talk about these things. People would see them being done, because that is what should happen. People would see the law being enforced without people standing on platforms and saying these things, because the assumption is that a law is made so that it becomes enforceable, and so that people follow that law. Not so that people follow law from time to time at the convenience or because a certain event has happened. That would be my view.
All right. Thank you very much. And of course, that I think will settle it, unless you have anything to add on this. Yeah, Professor Anganyang.
No, the Deputy Speaker reminds me of Michuki, and I remember at that time, I remember an interview in Michuki's office with these matatu owners, and it was on TV. And they went on saying, Mr. Minister, these seat belts, you should have warned us earlier. We didn't have time to buy them. We think we should be given more time. Mr. Minister, all that. They went on a long list of pleas to John. But John looked at them and said one thing. Well, gentlemen, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, all matatus will have seat belts and speed governors. Thank you very much and good night.
Veritas.
Veritas. And I was in my office. I called John. I said, John, I watched that thing. It was very good. I said, Peter, we mean business. We must do what we say. And I think one good thing with John, we must remember him very, very fondly, is that he was a matter-of-fact person. And I hope Matangi will follow John's example. And as Kimbi Gutura says, it's very important that these things don't depend on personalities, but they depend on established law and procedures, which should outlive us, ourselves, and to future generations. It's very bad that we used to have buses in this city, which arrived in time. You went to a bus station, and you saw bus number 6 is arriving at this hour. And they would arrive. They would arrive and take you, and you go. It was here in Nairobi. And I remember as a Minister of Planning, I visited Malaysia, and I was talking to the then Prime Minister who followed Mahathir Mohamad then. And he told me as a young man, he came to Nairobi in 1974, heading a youth delegation on behalf of the ruling party. And he was very impressed by the orderliness of buses in Nairobi. So when he went back to Malaysia, he told his government, and they said, we are going to establish exactly what happened in Nairobi. So they did. In 1985, 10 years later, when he came back for the Women's Conference, remember, the UN Women's Conference, in 85, he didn't see these buses anymore. And he was wondering what happened to Kenya. For them, they went and established this thing. They were even started making their own buses, by the way. So I think this idea of going forward and going back 2 steps has really hurt our history. And I hope it's time we decide to move forward and move forward forever.
All right.
And Debarl, really, I'm just looking at a story on page 12 and 13 of the Star.
That is page?
That's page 13.
Today's a weekend.
Today or today's, not the weekend.
Today's.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also we need to be sensitive to the people in the matatu industry. I don't run matatus myself, but
God forbid.
but look at extortion gangs,
yes,
gangs that undermine laws.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you read there, it's like the matatu owners, the fourth paragraph there, they pay between 50 to 100,000 shillings to get permission to put their buses on some terminal points in this city.
Yes.
You know, can you imagine that? You know,
so
I think also to be really fair, because these are investors. These are people who want to run. You can see down there, PSV crew pay 50 to 100,000. It's there, right there. Just imagine. Just to
30 to 100,000. Yes.
Yes, to have your matatu allowed in some
areas,
some terminals areas, you're going to pay between 50 to 100. You're not paying to a government. You're not paying this to the local county government so that they generate revenue. You're paying it into somebody's pocket.
Yes.
50 to 100. I think Matiang'i here needs to crack the whip because we are making this industry to be very unprofitable. That's why we are not seeing big investors joining the industry. And I'm imagining if you have 4 matatus,
yes,
you are going to enrich somebody's pocket, 400,000. And I think this is something I want to request my good friend Anyang' Nyong. I think the county government needs to work with Matiang'i to get rid of these criminal gangs, these extortionists, you know, so that the matatu, people in the matatu industry can also be appreciated. Instead of paying these gangs, this is money. I will be happy if this was tax going either to the county government or to the national government.
Thank you.
So I really hope that Matiang'i will also implement his threats and get rid of these gangs from all these terminals.
Right. Let's hear from Pogiso, then we'll come to you, Senator. Pogiso.
Yeah, on the same. The problem, in my view, is that we might deal with matatus and even maybe succeed in dealing with matatus. But the secondary problem now is that we've been trying to, the government has been trying to get rid of these extortionists on the roads. So you'll see one day a police officer is arrested and then it disappears forever, nobody's done, follows up on that. The other thing which they may have to deal with now is the borders, because that's another world altogether. That's another world altogether. I think, Debarl, if we can get interested parties, people who are supposed to protect us, not to own matatus or run matatus themselves, it'll be better, because now, if they're owned by police officers, for example, then who will stop them from doing the things that they do? So if we can get people who are supposed to help with stopping this, to declare their interest in the matatu industry, so that we know whom to deploy and those not to deploy. I think that's where the compromise is.
Right. Let's finalize this with Keme Gitura as well.
In my view, and I listen and appreciate very much what my colleagues have said. This is multi-departmental.
Yes.
Matiang'i is not Minister for Transport, is he? Is it supposed to be his internal security?
Yes.
And that's why he is there. IG Bonnet is there because the police enforce security and because of traffic officers also. CS Macharia is there because he's in charge of transport. Yes. So it must be done by all these people. And I told you I was listening to this documentary last night, and it was saying that in one matatu stop, I think in Kawangware or there, these gangs collect between 1 and 1.5 million shillings every month. Now this is money that's not accounted for. Is extortion because they tell a matatu, if you are going to enter into this bus stop or this matatu stage, you must pay between 5 and, you must pay 20 shillings. It's only 20 shillings. And therefore you think 20 shillings is not much money. But cumulatively, if you have 500 matatus and one is making about 10 trips a day to that stop and pays 20 shillings and there are more than 500 matatus in a month, you are calculating that it comes to between 1 million and 1.5 million shillings. Now, John Michuki was able to deal with this gangs. And it's because he was not doing it alone. And that's the reason I said the issue is not one talking about it from day to evening. It's about doing it. You must do what must be done. Don't tell us, because the reason you are Minister for Transport, the reason you are Minister for Internal Security is to do what you're supposed to do. So I think the issue is one of that we don't need to hear too much from them.
Yes.
We need to see that action is being taken, and that these gangs are not on the roads. But people get tired when they listen to the same thing through and through. So my suggestion is that we need to see order on the roads, and we need to see these cabinet secretaries working together, and we need to see that the citizen is able to ride in a matatu, reading a newspaper because there is no congestion, and not worried because it's driving at 80 kilometers per hour on a maximum, and also sure that they'll be able to get, reasonably certain that they'll be able to get to their destination. I would say that these are the things that we need to look into, and that starting today, it must be made clear that the rules and the law must be obeyed, because if it is not obeyed, if then we go back after another few months, then people will lose faith completely, and they'll have no reason to believe that anything is going to be done that is to their benefit. And that is a tragedy. That has continued to be the tragedy that we see from day to day. Why is it difficult, for instance, in my view? And I'm happy that Senator Mogeni has challenged my friend, Governor Nyang' Nyong'o. Because Governor Nyang' Nyong'o is in charge of Kisumu County. And he is in charge of all the matatu stops and bus stops in Kisumu. And there is, and if the Council of Governors agrees to work with the security system, with the transport system of this country, I don't see why we will not have order in Kisumu, have order in Murang'a, have order in Kisii, have order everywhere else, because the county governments have an interest in it. We must, all of us, take an interest in it, because when people suffer in Kisumu, it is the citizens, is the people that look up to Governor Nyang' Nyong'o that do not get comfort going to work and other things. But let me tell you, when we start hearing excuses like I had this morning, that if you started today, then the people who are sitting for KCSE will not make it to their exams. I mean, this is blackmail. It's going to continue, and tomorrow there'll be something else. Next week there'll be something else, and then it could go on forever. That is why John Michuki said, tomorrow morning, you are going to have safety belts, and you're going to have speed governors, or you are going to ground your matatus. That should be the edict, and that should be it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.